I fastened his cravat with shaking fingers, thinking I was helping the man I loved prepare to propose. He looked at me the way he used to, warm, familiar, almost trembling with the words he didn't say. And still, I did not see it. Not even after I overheard him speaking in secret to a gentleman I did not know, asking whether the ring would fit. Not even when he came home late each evening and still found me in the library, and smiled the way only he ever did, like I was the answer to a question he couldn't say aloud. No, I didn't see it. Not until the church bells rang. For another woman, this is the story of how I dressed the Viscount for his wedding, only to discover he was never meant to be mine. The morning light in Holbridge House was too soft, too still, as if the house itself knew, and I did not. I stood in the dressing-room doorway, holding the ivory silk cravat I had chosen just the evening before. He stood before the mirror, his coat half-buttoned, his hair just slightly untamed, as it always was when he wanted me to notice. Not the grey. I thought this one softer. You were shaking. I'm always nervous before a surprise. What sort of surprise, Verity? One you'll tell me in time, won't you? He didn't speak. He only looked at me, then stepped away. He put on his gloves without a word, turned and walked toward the waiting coach. I followed him down the steps. He did not look back. Not once. That was the last time I saw him as mine. The letter arrived 2 hours later. His sister brought it in. Verity, there's something I must tell you. He's married. This morning. To Miss Callista Greer. He, Sorin. Callista. The name caught in my throat. Well, you remember her. From the Farnham Assembly, lilac fan, loud laugh. I didn't know, Verity. I thought he'd ask you. She didn't stay long. The fire burned low, the tea went untouched. I sat still long after the light left the room. That night I lit 12 candles. I let them burn straight through. I did not cry. The candles burned until morning. I did not sleep. I sat on the floor beside the hearth, watching the wax drip and harden. 12 flames, 12 hours, each one quieter than the last. The first knock came 2 days later. I did not answer. It came again the next day, firmer this time. The butler opened the door. Mrs. Helmsley and Miss Langley, Miss, from the church assembly. I stood behind the stair rail, just out of sight. They came bearing sweet bread and gentle sighs. We've all been talking about you, dear, so many prayers. It was cruel what he did. Everyone expected it to be you. You were with him how many years? 5, 6? 7, I said without meaning to. The women blinked. I smiled too tightly and took the bread. They stayed for tea. I answered their questions with polite nothings. I said I was resting. I was grateful. I said nothing true. The third visit came with plum preserves, the fourth with a folded quilt, the fifth with a well-meaning psalm about suffering. By the 6th visit, I had begun to flinch at the sound of the bell. By the 7th, I remained upstairs. I watched from behind the curtain as Mrs. Langley waited at the step, twisting her gloves. She peered upward as if she could feel my presence behind the lace. She left a pie. I didn't eat it. 3 weeks passed. I drifted between rooms, between mornings, between the memory of his hands over mine and the moment he stepped into the coach without looking back. I could still hear his voice in that mirror-lit room. They'll be waiting. A footman knocked at the library door. Letter for you, miss, from Lord Holbridge. I took it silently. His handwriting was exactly as it had always been. Elegant, restrained, no flourishes. Verity, I hope you will not dwell in pain over what cannot be changed. You are my constant, and for that I owe you peace. Enclosed is the deed to Ashcombe House. Consider it yours. S. There was no I am sorry. No, I should have told you. No, forgive me. Just that. A house, a note, a signature. He had bought my silence with bricks and beams. I sat in the armchair and stared at the letter until the paper blurred. I had lived as a wife without ever becoming one. Now I was rewarded like a servant, sent off with property but no place to speak. The pantry dwindled. I drank broth. I scraped stale bread with dried thyme. There was nothing left but flour. I put on gloves and a shawl and pulled the veil low over my brow. And I walked into town. The street was narrower than I remembered, or I was smaller now. I passed the grocer, the milliner, the cobbler. All faces I knew. Faces that knew me. A woman with sharp eyes paused beside a fruit stall. She really came out, poor thing. Some women don't understand their place. She lived with him. What else did she expect? That he'd marry what was already his. I lowered my eyes and stepped faster. Inside the bakery, the scent of warm sugar nearly made me cry. I took the loaf. I paid in coins. My hands were shaking. The butcher's shop was worse. It was smaller, closer. Eyes followed me in, not out of cruelty, but something worse. Pity. Their silence said everything their mouths did not. I turned quickly. I could not stay another second. I pushed through the door, eyes brimming, chest burning, and collided with a tall frame just beyond the shop awning. Miss Ashcombe. I stumbled back, but he steadied me without pressure. It was Lord Winslow. He looked as startled as I felt. His coat was dusted in early spring pollen, his face unreadable, save for the soft concern in his eyes. He glanced down at the small paper sack I clutched. Flour, bruised apples, one half-wrapped wedge of cheese. May I escort you home? I opened my mouth. No words came. He did not press. He simply stepped back, waited for my nod, and then fell into step beside me, not touching, not asking, just walking. We said nothing, but it was the first time in 22 days I did not feel alone. I reached the front steps of Ashcombe House with the flower still clutched in my hands. The walk from town had been slow, quiet. Not once had he spoken without purpose. Not once had he offered more than silence, and yet something in that silence had steadied me. I turned at the door. Thank you for walking me back. Will you be all right? He asked. I meant to say yes. I meant to say you needn't worry, but the words tangled. Instead, I said nothing. I glanced at the door, then back at him. Would you like... I stopped. The sentence wilted between us. Perhaps another time, he said. Then I'll look forward to it. And he left, boots on gravel, shoulders back, no parting glance. The candles on the mantel had melted to stumps. The preserve sat unopened. The letter from Sorin had been folded and unfolded enough to tear the crease. The worst of the whispers had quieted, or perhaps I had learned to stop hearing them. And, one Sunday morning, I dressed in ash grey and went to church. The carriage ride was short, but every step from the door to the pew felt like a mile. I sat near the back, eyes down, gloves clenched. The sermon was gentle, all about waiting. Waiting for rain, waiting for spring, waiting for peace. I felt the words in my bones. I didn't look around the pews until the final hymn, and when I did, I saw him. Lord Winslow, seated 3 rows ahead, beside an older couple, not facing me, not watching, just there. He stood when it ended, helped an elderly man to his feet, and passed the aisle where I sat, without glancing over. That would have been the end of it. But outside, as the crowd spilled toward their carriages, someone called out, "Miss Ashcombe." I turned. He approached, slowly, no urgency, only calm civility. He bowed slightly. "It's good to see you again. I didn't think you'd still be in town. My uncle took ill. I've stayed to tend to a few things on his estate." He didn't press. "I hear the roses at Ashcombe are late this season." He said, "They haven't been watered," I replied. A pause passed between us. "Should I be concerned for the hydrangeas as well?" he asked. "They're holding on," I said. "Well, if you ever find yourself in need of pruning assistance, you've only to ask." I nodded, not out of obligation, but meaning. He didn't linger. He walked back toward his waiting cart. He didn't look back, not once. I turned to go, but before I reached the steps, two figures emerged from beneath the bell arch. Well now, wasn't that Lord Winslow? Still polite as a prayer, that one doesn't smile much, never did. He ran a peace campaign, came home with honours, but you'd never hear it from him. He's the Stratburn's second son, could have taken his brother's title when the estate nearly fell, but didn't, said it wasn't right. They say he doesn't speak to many women, and when he does, it's usually the kind he means to marry. We just notice things, dear, that's all always have. And they were gone, just two silhouettes disappearing into a sea of Sunday coats and carriage wheels. That night I sat by the fireplace with my tea untouched. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that used to make me ache. But tonight it simply felt still. Not lonely, not full, just still. And when the wind pushed, it was late afternoon when the note arrived. A folded parchment, cream-coloured, sealed with a crest I once thought I might wear. Delivered by the same footman who used to bring me roses. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the mantel, walked past it, dusted beneath it. I only broke the seal that evening when the sun slid behind the hedgerows and the whole world felt hollow. Just 12 words. I ask only a moment, in quiet, at your choosing, S.H. I stared at the ink until my eyes burned. I waited 3 days. I told myself I had nothing to say. But the truth was I wanted him to say something first. So when I finally sent a reply, it wasn't forgiveness, it was formality. A single line, "You may come on Friday at 4:30. No, he said, I thought you should know I was wrong. The fire cracked. He looked toward it, then back at me, not with arrogance, but something close to pleading. You were home, and I left home. I folded my hands in my lap. Slowly, you gave me your silence for 2 months before your wedding. And now, when the world has disappointed you, I am to become your comfort. No. He stepped forward, not close, just one pace. You were never meant to be comfort. You were everything. My breath caught, but I didn't move, not toward him, not away. I stood, slowly. I have washed your shirts, fed your hound, pressed your cravat, the day you dressed to propose, and you let me believe it was for me. He closed his eyes. I didn't know how to stop loving you, so I tried to skip the part where I had to ask. He said. I stepped past him. You skipped the part where I could say no. He did not follow. He left with the same silence he had once used to keep me near. That night I sat alone in the back garden, not crying, only still, until footsteps sounded beyond the hedgerow. A voice, quiet and low. Forgive the intrusion. I was told you keep evening roses. I turned, a coat dusted with soil, a small bouquet in his hand. Your gardener offered me the extras. I thought they deserved better company. I looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. They do. He didn't enter, he didn't ask. I'm leaving again, a temporary command in Alexandria, 4 months, perhaps 6. I said nothing, not because I didn't care, but because caring was safe. He glanced down, then back at me. May I write you? Yes. And as he walked away, quiet, firm, never looking back, I held the roses to my chest. Not for the scent, for the promise that at last I had not been left empty-handed. Babelia whispered. I let the door fall open, not as invitation, as surrender. He didn't cross the threshold, not yet. I lived, because one man covered me with his coat while the gunfire came. He died, I didn't. I think about that every hour. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time they weren't guarded. They were bare. I didn't come here to steal anything, not your peace, not your pity, but if there is a space left in your life, even if it's only for friendship. He lowered his head. I would like to stand in it. I closed my eyes, not to cry, but to breathe. When I opened them again, I stepped aside. You're not stealing anything. What's left is already yours. Not as a savior, not as a reward, but as a man who had once waited outside my gate with roses and patience. And this time he stayed. The whispers around town faded like old wallpaper. Some said I had made a mistake turning down the Viscount. Some said I had lost my mind letting a soldier share my garden. But most simply smiled when they saw us walking together. Gloves brushing, heads low, voices quiet. One autumn afternoon, As the wind picked up across the fields, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. He didn't kneel. He didn't ask for anything. He simply opened it, held it between us, and said, "I'd like you to choose where this belongs, whatever it is." I looked down at the ring. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't grand. It was his mother's. It was peace. I didn't speak right away. I just reached for his hand and closed the box. "We'll keep it near the fire, but not in it." He smiled. Not wide, not bold, just enough. That sounds like a yes. So it was. No fireworks, no parade, just us. A garden, a box, a woman, once abandoned in silence, now heard, chosen, and home at last.